Hello again. So I did not love the way the recording turned out on Zoom, and I found a new way to do it. And especially because we had so many people that couldn't make it in person, I wanted to redo this video so that you can follow along more easily with with me as I'm painting this. So I'm going to repaint the phone. I'm probably going to paint it a different color, but here's what we're going to do. We are going to paint the phone from tracing to details to signing our name. Are you ready? Let's do this. Okay. So let me switch my camera view and I'm going to just take this video. Here we go. And of course, I had it all set up. And now it's going upside down, but let's get this guy in here. See, it's Saturday night. I've got a glass of wine, got my paints all set up, got my lovely books here, keeping the base of this video all set. Okay. And I think we are ready to roll. All right. So we are going to begin by tracing, and we are going to trace this phone. So the cool thing about tracing is I'm using graphite paper, and the graphite paper, this is the shiny side. This is the non-shiny side. You want to make sure that your shiny side goes face down on your watercolor paper. The reference photo, I taped it on top. I will not untape my reference photo until I am completely done and know that I am completely done tracing this telephone. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I like to trace with a different color. So it's a black and white. I don't like to use black because that will just kind of blend in. You won't be able to see what I'm doing. I might get lost, but I'm going to go ahead and trace everything here. And as I shared with our class, I like tracing for a lot of different reasons. It really helps build a muscle memory for the drawing piece of things. And you'll find that if you start to draw by hand, you will already have a bit of a muscle memory for how lines should form if you get used to tracing. Watercolor is really about detail. It's about really seeing, it's about seeing as closely as you can. And as you begin to paint and as you continue to practice, watercolor will absolutely change the way you see the world. It certainly did for me. I started seeing landscapes by colors and shades in different variations. I would look at the color of a dog's eyes and wonder how I would paint that. Now, along those lines, seeing closely, I know the Zoom video quality is really not necessarily the best video quality, so it might be a little bit grainy, but what you should be paying attention to as you're tracing is you want to make sure that you are really capturing the highlight. So you're not just looking for the lines of the object. You want to make sure that you are capturing the dark places and the light places. And there's a lot on this phone that on first glance you might not realize is there. And it really takes a little bit of looking closely, very, very closely. There's some sharp edges. And where there are sharp edges, I will press a little bit harder. And if it's just a shadow, I'm going to be marking with my pen lighter because I don't necessarily want like this line right here. I'm going light with my pen. I don't want a huge dark graphite line. Let's take a look. Yeah, it barely even came through here. So I could probably go a little bit darker. There is a highlight right here in the corner. You might be able to see that. I'm going to try to trace a light line, and there's a highlight that happens right here. And right to the edge, there's a highlight here. I want to capture that because I want to remember not to darkly paint those edges. And this is just a little square on the receiver. And there's a highlight right here. There's also a highlight over here. So I'm just making sure to trace all of these little pieces going around the circle of the rotary dial here. And don't worry about being too perfect. We don't need to be perfect. Perfect is boring. There's no such thing as perfect. Perfection is absolutely a myth. But the more detailed you can be in your drawing, the more detail you'll be able to bring in within your painting. So for those of you who did watch the video on from Thursday's class, you'll know I kind of sprained my index finger on my right hand, which I'm right-handed. So I was having a really, really difficult time actually trying to trace during our class because it was pretty painful. But today I'm having a lot easier of a time because it's healing. A little swollen and very black and blue, but it is definitely on the mend. I can tell because this tracing is going a lot more smoothly than it did the other day. And gosh, I'll tell you, when you have an injury on a body part that you use a lot, it absolutely makes you so grateful for your health. I'm not someone that gets injured a lot, and it is just really great to not get injured a lot. Feel very lucky. Now, these lines here, the more specific you can get with the lines and the highlights, of course, the more detail you can bring in, and it just depends. I think most of you who are watching this are pretty new to watercolor, so don't let these lines flummox you. You know, you can just not be super detailed with them. You can just bring an illusion in here, and you'll certainly be able to tell that it's a chord the way it is like that. These buttons, so this is not a traditional rotary phone, like not the original rotary phone, right? Because I know that because it's not actually a rotary. You can see this has buttons, which is kind of cheating. I grew up in a house that my parents refused. They're not the technology adopters. So I had a rotary phone all through my childhood, and it's really only been in the last 5 to 7 years that my mom got rid of the rotary phone. It was actually a sad day. It's kind of nice. One of the things I miss terribly is a communal phone. I wonder if all of us have nostalgia for this, those of us that experienced it, but having somebody call the house and calling, "Hey, Mom, Grandma's on the phone," or "Hey, Papa, Grandma's on the phone," and everyone would pass the phone around and talk to the person on the phone. And so it was just a nice way to get to know the people in your parents' lives or your siblings' lives. I know my girlfriends just thought it was so sweet when my little brother would answer the phone. I have a lot of nostalgia for grew up in the 80s and the 90s, so the 80s and the 90s in my case. I'm still tracing. I'm just trying to bring as much detail into these buttons as I can. I'm just outlining what I see. That's really all you can do. Some of it's a little fuzzy in here, and that's okay. It's completely okay that it's a little fuzzy. We're just going to bring in the illusion in those areas. So don't worry if you don't get it right. So for example, this little area here, I'm just kind of making squiggly lines where it looks like there would be words. I'm not really worrying about it too much. Just letting it be the illusion. And I want to take a look at what I've drawn. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lift up my paper. And I missed some details over here that I want to bring in. So I missed the pound. Put the pound sign in, and I missed 4. And I'm going to kind of circle some of these buttons a little bit better. You can tell there's going to be a lot of shadow in the buttons. So I think we're about done. I'm going to kind of look this over and see if I missed anything. I did actually think I missed something over here. I just want to follow this line a little bit. And okay, I think we're about done. Well, there's one thing, this shadow right here, there's a little shadow down here. I'm going to lightly draw that in. There's also a little shadow over here, and the shadow kind of comes out over here. So I just want to give myself, it's very light. So I'm going to go ahead and remove now that reference photo as well as the tracing paper. So next, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to try to get a little closer for you here. Okay, I'm going to move this over just a bit. And I've got my paint up here. And I'm going to bring in my tray. My water is over here. I do have 2 of these Artistro sets. One is really old. The one over here is really old. And the colors are similar, but not always the same as the newer set, which is what most of you probably have. And like I said in the first class, your Artistro, if you received the Artistro kit, it would have come with a blank one of these, and you are going to want to fill that in so you have a map of what the colors look like when they're dry. This does not correspond to your trays. This corresponds to your trays. But you can check here and say, for instance, oh, light blue. Where is my light blue? Oh, and then you'll come here and you'll see light blue in the tray is over on the left-hand side. So I'll see that my light blue is here. So that gives you an idea of what your colors look like when they are dry and where to find them. Now, I did the phone in red when we painted together in class, and I could do red again, but I'm also thinking it could be really fun to kind of go pink. So for this particular class, I think I'm going to go pink. In any of my classes, it's really choose your own adventure. If we're painting something and you want to paint it red or green or blue, go for it. You can feel free to change the colors. If you're seeing something different, if a different color is speaking to you, I really want you to feel confident to go ahead and change that. So I'm going to go ahead and begin getting some pink on my brush. I'm going to use, I think, in the supplies, I said get around 12. This is 16, so it's a little bit bigger than a 12. And you should have a 2 and a 6. A 6 is such a great go-to brush. But in the beginning, especially if I'm mixing color, the 12, the 16 size, I'm going to get my brush really wet. And then I'm going to take my brush over to the tray and I'm going to just go around in circles like this. I want to pick up a lot of this pigment. So with my wet brush, I'm just trying to pick up as much as I can and then bringing it over here. Yeah, so this is going to be a hot pink zone. How do y'all feel about that? And I'm really curious for those of you that are just watching the recording, what did you end up doing? What colors did you do? So I got this very bright hot pink here mixed on my palette, and I want to show you something on the reference photo. So as I said, watercolor is really about being very closely. So here is about the lightest color red. These highlights are the lightest color red that are on the picture. And what we want to do is we're going to glaze. We're building up color. So we can always go darker and it's much harder to go lighter. So to build up color, what I have right here is really the darkest. I've mixed the darkest color. So that's not what I want to put down. I'm going to bring some of that dark over here, and now I'm going to lighten it up by adding water. So I'm dipping my brush into the water and then bringing that water over to the tray. And then I'm mixing it around here. And I'm going to just go ahead and paint everywhere that I see the red, this pink color. And it's pretty much the lightest pink that I can get it. And look, I made a little mistake. My reference photo moved just a little bit. That's okay. You know what I can do is I can take a pencil and I can just kind of draw that in correctly or give it a little, not too messed up. Really, there are really no mistakes. I want to encourage you to really start thinking about watercolor, your watercolor time, not only as your creativity time, but as a way to really examine your self-talk. I am a life coach. That's my primary profession, but I always suggest to my clients that they get to know their intuition, get to know themselves through their creative practices. And when we start getting creative, we can really see, if we get quiet, we can see what thoughts are coming up. It's a really great way for us to examine what words we're speaking to ourselves. And for most of you, I think a lot of you are beginners to this medium. And so really, there should be no trying to get it right or quote unquote, like I said, perfect. All we really want to be doing right now is playing, getting curious. Okay, how can I bring more water onto my brush? If I do that, what happens? And right now, what I'm doing is a wet on dry technique because you have your wet brush and you're bringing your wet brush to your dry paper. It is wet on dry. Such a beautiful, fun way to start. It's one of my favorite. I mostly use the wet on dry. The wet on wet technique, I use that if I'm doing big skies or a background. So if we were going to put a background on this particular phone, which maybe I will for this one, we'll have to see. That's when I would do a wet on wet. Maybe I might not even do a wet on wet for a background like that, but wet on wet helps you get the color a little even when you're working in bigger swaths. But there can be a lot of different reasons why you would want to use it. Okay. Now, other place is I want to make sure I get this cord, even with I'm going to give it that little crank over here. Yeah. Mhm. So this little cord, it just makes me so nostalgic. I love the way the handheld of a phone, like resting that phone receiver in the crook of your neck, how that feels. I don't know, not another feeling like that these days. Okay, so that's the initial color, right? We have color mapped. We've gotten that done. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to then, let's see, I want to next pick up my round six brush and I'm going to put there's black dark in this area and I'm going to go ahead and put that in. So I'm going to pick up I put my brush in the water and then I brought it over here to the black called, I think, Onyx Black on yours. And I'm just going to go ahead and maybe get a little bit more water in there. And then I'll just, I'm going to give the illusion of words, like kind of going around certain areas. So it looks like something's written, even if you can't read what was written there. It looks like there's a little white line as well. So just avoiding that. In watercolor, there's very, very rarely. So when we watercolor, typically you don't ever use white. You use the paper as white, and you do that by just not painting on it, leaving it blank, which is what I did here. So it kind of looks like there could be writing there, even though you don't exactly know what that is. And then here, there's like some numbers underneath. So it just kind of looks like something's printed there. And then there's the little feet of the phone. These are probably rubber feet. So I'm going to go ahead and paint these black. Remembering that in watercolor, it always dries a little bit lighter. And I'll keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to rinse off my brush. And now what I want to go ahead and do is I want to do these little bits. So on my reference photo, as you see, there's these little bits of, mine will be pink, but they're red if you're doing red. So I'm going to pick up those little bits. And I'm not worrying about them being super light per se, but I do see where they are. I'm going to add them in. I wish you all could be in my studio with me because it is just so beautiful in here right now. I don't even have the lights on, and you probably wouldn't know that because it just looks so bright, but the sun is coming in. My windows to the right side of me are facing west. And so they just really pick up this nice, it picks up the sun so well, that setting. Details, you either love them or you don't. To me, they're so fun. It's kind of where the painting begins to come to life. And I find it really satisfying to begin bringing in painting or bringing in the details to the painting like this. All right. So, what I'm trying to wait on is where it's dry, right? So, if the paper is wet and I put down a slightly darker color, the drier side will bleed into anything that is still wet. So, I'm going to be really careful about that and decide where I want it to go next. Okay. I am going to keep my round six and I'm going to start using, I'm going to keep it kind of light, but I'm going to begin to color map the darker areas. So there's this line right here. It's darker back here, like that little highlight. And even this is a little dark right here. And then this side right here, I might even pick up more pigment and bring that in. Yeah, I want to get a lot more pigment. I want to, for this front side of the phone right here. Have fun. Isn't that satisfying just to watch this color come together and you can begin to see your painting emerge? So satisfying. There's a highlight that I'm avoiding and just spraying it down right here and over here. Spend a lot of time watercoloring alone in this room, just like this. And it's kind of fun to be talking to you and sharing my thoughts. And I wish that you could be talking back to me and telling me what you're thinking about and how this is going for you. So when you paint this on your own, be sure to just shoot me a message when you finish it and say, hey, I finished and this is what I was thinking about while I was painting and this is how it went for me. I would really love to hear that. I'll feel a little less lonely. Well, I don't get lonely, but it'll be nice to hear from you all. I'm truly an introvert and I love people. I can extrovert if I need to when it's required, but I'm certainly an introvert. And I've been an introvert my whole life. It's funny how that works. Just bringing this color down. So again, it's just darker than that first initial color that we did. And I'm bringing it down. And of course, feel free, you're watching this on a recording, so just if I'm going too fast or if you just want to watch it first and then do it, you can always stop where I'm at. And don't forget over here, there's this highlight on the right hand side. So I'm just kind of bringing a little in here and leaving space for that nice highlight. The highlights are so fun. And I got a little wonky on the drawing over here, but who cares? Like I said, this is not about being precise. This is about enjoying the process. Nurturing our creativity, I think, is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves. Like, it's on par with nurturing our inner child. I mean, it's almost the same thing because our creativity, I think it really gets beat up over the years in grade school and high school. And it's so nice to like bring it out of hiding and say, hey, it's safe right here. You're safe with me. We can do this together. And when I do that, I learn so much from myself. Like I'm really able to access my intuition through this process. My instructor, Sharon Larson, she's just absolutely incredible. You have to go visit her Instagram. S. Larson, I believe, is what it is. She's just amazing. And her work, she always says when she's teaching class, and this is something I just love, she says, if you are getting the inclination to do something, you need to just try it. It's just a piece of paper. Chances are it will probably turn out well. And if it doesn't, it's just a piece of paper. But I found that she's really right. And what happens is when you learn to follow that voice here in the safe environment of you know, just playing with a piece of paper that you can ball up and throw away if you really want to, although I don't recommend. It really helps you strengthen your intuition. It helps you just pay attention to yourself a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to go for this in here. There's this little highlight right here I want to avoid. I didn't draw it in, but I want to avoid that. I want to leave that highlight right there. Yeah. I just love how as you start to add layers and add details, it just begins to emerge. Can you see it? Can you see the painting emerging and popping? So fun. Like we're archaeologists and we're digging with our paintbrush. And with every little brush we put on, we are uncovering a little bit more of this little telephone. It's so fun. And see if I left this right here. I don't know that I'll completely leave it like that, but that's certainly a highlight that I see in the reference photo. And I want to keep that because it will help add depth to this picture. Now that I've gotten that next layer down, I'd like to come over and work on this cord a little bit. So I want to kind of bring spots in here. And I'm just taking the tip of my brush kind of up those lines. I'm probably going to go completely over those lines, but I'm outlining the bottom and I'm going to go up the top. And over here. Are you having as much fun as I am? This is just a hoot to me. I love it. A little bit of a dark shadow thing right here. Okay, so these lines, I'm going to keep going with these lines. Again, it's really deep, deep, deep seeing. We've got to pay attention. We've got to get quiet. We've got to look at that reference photo. What do we see? What's happening? Draw that in. And sometimes you have to see what's there, but not there, if that makes any sense. Sometimes, what we yeah, I'll see if I can explain that a little bit better as we keep painting. But for the time being, I want to darken this up over here. And back here is a little dark spot. This part where the receiver connects to the cord, that dark as well. Okay. So the thing about this pink is it's hard to get it darker, but the fun thing is that I can tell you is when you look at this reference photo, it's not just a red that we're seeing. Like this is like a purple, right? So I can bring a little bit of blue in and kind of mix a little bit more to add some more depth. And I'm going to do that. So I'm going to come over to my Cobalt, I believe. Maybe I want Azure. Mm, no, that's Azure. But yeah, I'm going to mix it in. Just get this, see what happens with this color right here. I want it to be more pink. I'm going to keep it on the pinker side of the violet. I've got this color here, and I'm just going to start to bring that in, bring in what I see. So I'm going to bring it into the receiver. That's the darkest place that I see it happening. I'm going to honor that by bringing it right in here. Yeah, I like this turning out really well. Need to get more pink. So I'm just grabbing a little bit more pink here, bringing that in, getting more pigment. Again, bringing it over here. So there's this line or this crease right here. Yeah. And it comes in a little bit over here as well. And as you can see, it comes down on this side right here. And down just a line of the purple across the bottom. And this kind of comes over here. Just lovely. Okay. Starting to shape up, I believe. Just keeping this purple right here. And kind of pulling it down around here. Here. And let's see, I believe right here. This was so much fun. Okay, so it's starting to really shape. Now I'm gonna bring more pink, dark, dark, dark. And I'm gonna keep this pink really dark and pull it in, yeah. So it's almost all pigment on my brush here. I want this to really stand out. I want it to pop. That's perfect. Like, you gotta get a lot of just a little bit of water on this pigment, or a little bit of water into this little square tray, and then really pulling up the pigment. So so much fun watching this emerge. Here we go. Yes. Oh, look how that circle comes. I'm leaving that little highlight along the edge right there. Okay, that's coming down so nicely. Get a little bit more of this pigment, this dark pigment. And I'm going to take a look at my reference photo, and it's pretty dark down here too. So I'm going to bring that in, bringing it in down here. It's, it's dark. Look at, okay. This is starting to really, really shine. And I'm even going to bring more of this dark pink over top of this purple. I just feel like I haven't quite gotten it to the color I want it to. I'm not afraid to go back over it while it's still wet and really mix this pink and getting there. Slowly, slowly, slowly. All right. Now, keeping it pretty full of pigment, I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that purple. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get this dark center once again. Going back over it. I'm really curious what all of you decided to paint your fountain. What colors did you decide to use? You'll definitely have to either post on social media or shoot me an email. Some of you already have. I loved seeing those emails. All right, going around there like that. And you can almost see the side over here. So I'm just going to add that on that side. And coming up just a bit over here. This little cord kind of darkening in certain spots where I see the lines. Really trying to bring in darker color here. Yeah, the devil is in the detail, isn't it? With watercolor, it's always the detail that make the watercolor Just bring them in. I have this little line that comes down here. Action line. And the line back here is a little more purple. Yeah. Actually looks starting to look really good. Darker here. So there's this little line right here. Kind of starting that in. Let's see, what else? Okay, there's more that we can do in here. And I'm just gonna bring in kind of it's not what was there to draw, but it's what kind of should be there. So I'm just kind of circling this a little bit. And now I want to get a little bit more of that azure on mine. And I'm just pulling the azure, just the azure. And I want to create just a little line right around here. A little darker than I need it to be. That's okay. This is pretty wet. I'm not going to bring it over here. It's too wet, I think. But here, I think I can bring it in. So let's just see how that's making that pop a little bit. Also, I'm going to see if I can bring it all the way. Back. It might bleed a little bit over here. I'm going to get worried about it. Just going to bring it around. Yeah, that makes it pop for sure. And you can see we've got that same thing going on right here. Brought in the azure. In the places where the pink is wet, it will turn purple, is what I want. Otherwise, it will give it a little line. It's perfect too. I'm going all the way around. All right, there's this little line right here, and it's kind of blue. I'm going to leave the azure as it is as I put that line in. These little lines right here. I'm going to add. I don't think I did that in the other class. I just see a little bit more clearly right now. They're right there. Yeah, I'm pulling those in. There we go. All right, that is starting to pop. It's perfect. I'm loving how that is turning out, and I'm going to begin to let that dry. Now, I'm going to take this azure again. I love to see that kind of, I want to get it, I want to make it more purple, and I want to add it right here. And right here. And I still haven't quite got the purple right here that I want. Still pretty wet though, unfortunately. Not doing exactly what I wanted to do. But that's okay. I'm feeling a little impatient. I just want it to. It is pretty dark over here, so I want that. I just want to let that be what it needs to be. It should be darker over here too. And I'm going to want a sharp, dark azure line right here. Well, it actually doesn't even need to be sharp. So I might, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my brush wet. I want to bring it over here. I want a little bit more water. But I'm just going to take this and I'm going to bring this line right here. And it's actually good that it's not dry because that line is going to travel just a little bit. And that's kind of what I'm hoping. Gonna give just a little effect. And let me bring them down here. And here. This over here, I'm just gonna kind of, it's almost like I'm mixing it on the paper a little with the pink, darkening up. Yeah, that's fun. And then I'm going to take that azure once again, mix it with the purple, and just draw another line right here. Just trying to make this stand out just a little. We're getting there. Just going to blur this line a little bit toward the edge over here. I think that's looking pretty good. What do you think? I am digging how that is going. Now, I want to make a little bit of like a gray. And so I'm just really getting this black wet. I had the black already on my palette. And I want to just bring it on this little metal piece. Yeah. I'm gonna let that be like that. And we're getting pretty close to done. We could give this ground, if I were going to give this background color, I'm thinking of what would go really well. Like this is like a neon pink. So neon green would really be a fun complementary color. And if I'm going to give it a background, I want to give it a background before I put the shadows underneath it because I want to put the shadow over top of that color. So I think that's what I'm going to do next while I'm waiting for some of the other places to dry. So I'm rinsing off this big brush, trying to get all of the pigment off the brush, just to leave it with water. And I'm going to try to pick up a lot of this neon green. And I have the feeling that I don't want my background just fully neon green, but I'm going to play with it. So I'm going to play in the tray over here. That's what that color would look like. And you can see it's pretty close. I think it would look good just like that. And I'm curious if I add a little bit of blue, what that would look like. So I'm rinsing off the brush again, and I'm going to get a lot of this blue that's right next to the neon green and pick it up onto my brush. Yeah, I just mixed it all together. So very little of the blue. I'm liking just the neon green, I think. So I'm taking this color and I'm picking up a lot of the pigment and bringing it over here to the right-hand side. And I'm going to keep doing that until I have a good amount on my palette. I'm going to add a little bit more water. And I'm going to mix it around. And I'm going to go ahead and start. So I want to try to make really smooth lines, and I want enough water on my brush and the paper that it doesn't dry too quickly and create a line. Because if it dries, it will create a line. So I'm going to try to move pretty fast, not letting anything like dry with a sharp line that will look weird. I mean, if that happens, no big deal. But if I can avoid it, I'm going to try to avoid it. So I'm going to pick up some more pigment. I know I'm going to need it. I'm moving this over here. Need a little bit more water. Just going to kind of move this. And yeah. As you can see, I just kept it pretty dark neon green, if that makes sense. And I'm just going to bring the color down, and I'm using my big brush because it will cover a lot of space quickly. And I'm going to pick up more of that green pigment. I'm bringing it back over to my tray. My table is not exactly even, so the color is moving down into my black, and I just want to be careful and move fast here. Picking up more pigment, bringing it to the tray, pulling it in. Look how fun this is. In here, this is just a tricky little spot, right? I could have waited to do this last, but I'm gonna try to keep it even in color. Okay, there we go. Almost done with this background. Very close. All right, that's lovely. I think it's lovely. I'm going to call my work lovely. I think you should call your work lovely too, because it is. It is. Anything we make with our hands, just really amazing that we can do it. And I got a lot of paint on my desk. No big deal. I'll wipe it off later. Okay, so here is my phone. Now, I'm not completely done. There's still some stuff that I think that I want to bring in, but I know that it's going to be in this area that I want to bring it in. But over here, I want to just bring some details in with my micron pen. So my micron pen, I'm going to bring in a 0.03, I believe. Yeah. And that this is a micron pen. Micron 03 is what I'm using. And I talked a little bit about it in class. And micron pens, these are the pens that you would use if you wanted to do like a pen and ink drawing. You could do the drawing and then go over so do the drawing in pencil and then go over it in pen, let the micron dry, and then after it dries, you would be able to go ahead and paint over top of it and it wouldn't smear. Now, I have to be careful on this because any places that might be wet, it could smear if I touch the pen to that area. So I know that this is dry in here where I'm going to be working. So it's a little tricky because my background is wet. I don't want to mess it up, but I want to do my little star and my pound button and my 0, 9. So I'm just kind of putting in my numbers in my micron pen. I'm leaving my buttons white. We could try to get them like that cream color, but why? I mean, this is just fine. Okay, so I'm going to give some outlines to the button as well. It'll just help the piece look a little bit better. Again, it's a bit tricky because, like I said, it's not completely dry. I'm not doing all of these incomplete round, just some of them. It's part of these circles. Give it a little over here. And voila. So the phone is mostly done. I think that that's pretty satisfactory. Now, the things that it's missing, there's a shadow under here that I want to add in. And I kind of like that this is still a little bit wet when I'm doing it. I do want to bring that azure, this really pretty azure here, and I'm going to bring it all over. Azure is just a great color. So I just put that shadow in there, and really I can, if I want to, and I do want to, almost a little shadow here. And the azure is pretty dark right up against this area. Really gonna let that be dark. Let it be really dark. Yeah, I like how that look. Okay, and there is a little bit of a shadow in this area. So I'm just going to get my brush, get a lot of water on the brush. So I'm going to really water it down. And now I'm going to kind of look at this. I want to, like the shadow comes out a little bit more like light shadow. Yeah, look at that. Look how fun that is. Just perfect. And you can take a little darker blue right under here and right here. And it's almost like it comes out, extends out a little bit to here. That's just lovely. I like how that turned out. Okay. Now, once again, I want to get some really dark pink. I see this little spot. There's this spot right under here that I want to darken up. And I'm gonna bring it right here too. Now I'm gonna get a little bit more of that pink. Strong, strong pink. And come back here. Yeah. And right here. Not being afraid to come back over this. All right. I think I am about done. I keep saying that and then I keep saying things that, oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that. The sharp little line right here. Water. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I could even add a little tiny bit of watered down blue pink right here. Make that a little darker. It's almost the purple, right? And there's pretty good line right here. And it's going to bleed a little. That's okay. Right there. You've almost got one right here, too. And come over here as well. And add a touch of that into this area. And I think that is going to do it. So there you have it. And that is a voila. I know the sun is a little shining. So as you can see, um, this is our phone. And yay for completing the telephone. Okay, let me now switch videos and I'm going to say hello and goodbye. So great job, everyone, painting this telephone. And I look forward to seeing you again on Thursday and we'll do it again together. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend and I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, don't forget to sign it and date it. Okay, bye bye.